You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Had to deal with some technical difficulties here, but we're here. We're good. Shout out to those of you who are on live with us. I just dropped a quick video earlier today. You might have seen a premiere of the video talking about, the need for Black women to also be involved in this curriculum work that we're doing. I made a post on Twitter the other day talking about it, and I explained the post in my earlier video today. So it's just like a 2.5 minute video. Make sure to go check it out and pass it along on your social media. There's nothing really inflammatory about the video. It's a real short call to action asking that Black women get involved and be engaged, right? So in today's show, I see we have some people just joined the Discord and they following instructions. I see Nelly is in there and asking, how can I help? And that's what you need to be doing. Join the Discord. In the video that I put out earlier today, I have a Discord link in there that lasts longer than 24 hours. I've been trying to keep them at 24 hours so I could engage people as they come in. But now I set up one that is good for 100 different people. Make sure pass that video around. Let people who might be interested, people who didn't even know they were interested in it, but it clicks with them, it resonates with their spirit. Let them have the ability to click the link and join the Discord. Ask how you can help. Nelly, I will be giving you your role as on the writing team for the curriculum, so you'll be able to see what we're doing. There is an activity concerning the curriculum that we are in the middle of right now, well, close to the end of it actually, because Friday, I believe, or Saturday is the deadline for people to have their responses in, and so that we can have a discussion perhaps on Saturday. Maybe Saturday's broadcast can be the discussion. I was thinking about showing a documentary film, but I don't mind having the discussion about the responses. So I hope you guys who are in the Discord, who are familiar with what I'm talking about, I hope you guys are putting in the work, answering those questions about a previously done African-centered curriculum, and so we could figure out the strengths and the weaknesses of that curriculum and our overall thoughts. And so we have something to build on. Not only do we have that curriculum to build on, but we have ideas for the curriculum to build on, right? Build on its strengths, less of its weaknesses. So, as you guys well know, this show is a part of a podcast network, a pro-Black podcast network, a Pan-African Black nationalist podcast network, and there are other shows on the network that you guys should be checking out. Take a listen to this.
This is DAX. You tune into the Harsh Reality Podcast, providing you with social commentary on the news affecting our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-black perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
All right, make sure you check out those shows on KWAZ Radio Podcast Network. We have more shows coming up in 2021, so make sure you go. And as a matter of fact, go over to KWAZ Radio YouTube channel, subscribe and click the bell, because some new stuff is going to be happening on that channel, and it's also where you're going to see, you know, content from all the shows that's on the network. So you should definitely, if you like what I do, you like what the Pro Black Perspective does, or the Harsh Reality Podcast, or the Queen's Council, go over to KWAZ Radio and subscribe. Okay, I want to give a free business shout out too. I don't have full details. But I do want to shout them out. Let me just make sure I have the right. Yeah, so I want to shout out Citrus Renovations. They're on Facebook for the time being. They're located in Florida. When I have more details, I'll give more details, but Citrus Renovations has been in contact with us, and I want you guys to check them out on Facebook. Just type in citrus.renovations at the end of facebook.com/citrus renovations. Make sure I give them some support. Hopefully they will update with more information coming soon, right? That's important. Okay, all of that said, let's get to the actual reading. Oh, you know what? Just before I get to the reading, I put up on Twitter today a couple of things I put up today on Twitter. But one of the things I put up on Twitter is, you know, who's good at coding, right? Computer programming, right? Now known as coding. Who's good at coding, particularly in these coding languages that are good for kids, you know, Scratch, Python, Java, Unity, etc., 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 right? There's about 7 of them that are pretty good. There's one called Go, I think it's Golander too. And there's another one, is it Golander? There's another one that's good with like Roblox, you know, these games that these young kids like to play. And I'm a personal believer that you meet people where they are. If your kids like certain kinds of entertainment or what have you, I believe that you should try to get them to be you know, to think along the lines of perhaps getting into that area, right? If they like movies, push them to get into film. If they like dance, push them to dance. If they like art, push them to do art. The reason I say that, and I've said this before on the show, is because if a kid loves to do something and they could work on that through their education, as an adult, they could work in that area, or they could create a business of their own in that area, you've just made their life 100 times better. And that's what you should want to do, right? Push kids into what they naturally engage in. And so coding is one of these things that you can get kids into, even if you just get them into it, even if you just slip it to them in terms of gaming, right? And the smaller the better. Get them into Scratch. Scratch is something I got my kids into. Get them into Scratch. Scratch is something that, you know, instead of having to type a bunch of code, you kind of drop these boxes. It's almost like a Lego, right? It's these boxes that have these commands, and you fit them together almost like Lego. One of these days, I think I'm gonna actually do a show where I go over this, right? but it should be fun. And trust me, on the Discord, actually in my possession, I have crazy numbers of coding books for kids. You know, I have a lot of science books. I have a lot of Black history books. And so being that we're working on this curriculum, I have these resources because I think that we need to go to them and we need to use them in terms of what we're creating for this curriculum. Also, before I start the reading, one of the things that I've noticed in this curriculum building, we talked about it a little bit the other day. We had the brethren who was trying to drop a link to some like African-centered textbooks and stuff like that. I wouldn't really say that they're textbooks for kids. They're more so books for adults. But there is a huge void in the number of solid textbooks, African-centered textbooks that's out there. A huge gap. And if you got, if anyone listening to this was smart at the time, didn't know what direction they wanted to take in life, etc., 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 you would jump on looking up some of these textbooks, right? Understanding that the textbooks that are out there are Eurocentric, figuring out how to Africanize that learning, maybe finding you know, older or ancient ways that Africans went about problem solving in science and stuff like that. But if you put in the work, you put out a good math textbook. In fact, someone in the WhatsApp group, the Bitter Medicine Podcast WhatsApp group, someone posted a math video that I didn't have a chance to really look at, but based on our 1 or 2 responses to that video, it seems like the video was fire. And all I'm saying is that's the lane right there. And I've pointed out several lanes on this show. Sit down and figure out a math textbook, a chemistry textbook, a biology textbook that's African-centered, that brings it back to the African being, right? The African world. I mean, that's a lane right there. I hope someone eventually hears what I'm saying. I can't do all the stuff, right? So I hope someone eventually listens to what I'm saying and realizes, wow, that is a lane. By the way, being that I teach at the college, I can tell you this. Textbooks are going, I'm talking about that's a regular little biology textbook that was like $40 when I was a student 25 years ago, is now $150, $100 and something bucks, right? There's an online component to most of these things, but the textbook itself is almost nothing. As a matter of fact, you can sell, as a matter of fact, students buy the textbook at essentially as PDF files, as ebooks, right? So if you sit down and you work out a really concise but powerful textbook, you're talking about, you can, you know, you might not be able to sell it because of the conditions of our folks per se. You might not be able to sell it for $160, $70, but if it's really helping students to excel and really building that confidence for our students in these different subject areas, that's a business right there. Okay, so that's a business idea given to you. You guys know I've been giving business ideas for a couple of years now, right? Get into that. You know, I can't do it. I can't do all the things. There's lanes for all of us to fall into. And if you feel like, well, you know, that lane sounds like something I'd like to get into, join the Discord. Be a part of the curriculum building so you know what's needed in the textbook. All right? Without further ado, let's get into today's reading. So this paper is called My Black Mothers and Sisters, or On Beginning a Cultural Autobiography. And it's written by BERNICE Johnson Reagon, right? And it starts like this. In most societies, it is from women that you get the most consistent concept of nationhood of any people. Women usually are very nationalistic in the way they determine what they are supposed to be doing with their lives. With black people in the United States, we understand that one of our responsibilities is to live and struggle so that there will be another generation of people. That's an interesting point. That's why our people chose to live during certain events, right? To give our people, you know, our people in the wider sense, right, a chance to live on in the next generation or generations to come. And we can't fault them for that, right? This makes us, black women, as a group within the black community, nationalistic. We have to take on the task of understanding what or who black people are as a people, and how we, black women, must move so that there will be our people today and tomorrow. Historically, we have confronted with our very beings the premise that black people were not brought here to be here always. Pay attention to that. If we look at early years of black existence in this society, we find that in the brutality of the slave system, we died in greater numbers than we were born. The problem of our people then was to turn around this dying recipe of slavery so that there would be a black people. To take on that job is to be nationalistic, to be about the formation and continuance and survival of a nation. All right, black women as mothers have been the heart of that battle. And so that's why, this is me talking, not the paper. That's why I put it out there earlier in my video, like, you guys gotta, you know, black women, we need you guys to be involved. You can't sit down and wait till about 10 black men create a curriculum and then say, well, it doesn't reflect black girls and black women, or it doesn't reflect this certain sensitivity or that certain sensibility. Be involved on the, you know, from the ground level. To continue, we are at the base of our identity as nationalists. We are people builders, carriers of cultural tradition, key to the formation and continuance of culture. We are the ones who touch the children first and most consistently. Right? As I read this, I think about a friend of mine who has a young child right now. Right? We are the ones who touch the children first and most consistently, and that reflects her 100%. Social researchers tell us that by the time we are 2 or 3 years old, much of our cultural identity has been set. The experiences and data that go into making up that identity come to the child carried by the personnel charged with the maintenance of the environment in which life begins and grows. In the black community, this environment has historically been our responsibility. There's a responsibility for being a mother, and a black mother at that. And it's a pretty heavy one. But it should be one that you carry with honor. Whether it is from the mother or the grandmother or the aunt or the babysitter or the nursery, the first words that the child begins to speak, the first smells, the songs, the body stances, the tastes, come from the women part of the society. Black women are nationalists in our efforts to form a nation that will survive in this society. We are also the major cultural carriers and passers of the traditions of our people. So this is me talking now. You know, one of the things I thought about during the whole ADOS FBA thing that was going on is like, to me, it seemed like the women in that were followers, right? The women were followers. They weren't the carriers and the passers of the traditions of our people. They weren't the ones out ahead of it saying, listen, let's stop this anti-African narrative, right? We are African people. And we need to move that way. We need to create solutions for African problems. We need to be the ones who are raising these Afrocentric and African-centered males and females who will become the loyal leader of African people in the future, right? To me, the women were just listening to what some dumb men were talking about. And I say that seriously. I believe men to be kind of stupid. And for women to want to follow men, I believe that's even twice as stupid. Or when I say follow men, I mean to be like men. And to do what men do, I think it's twice as stupid. There's a beauty in your womanhood. There's an integral role there. You need to follow who you are, right? To continue, the roles that Black women have played in making a Black space in the United States of America in which Black life can grow have been nationalistic, cultural, and also revolutionary. Revolution, as I understand it, is the stopping of something, turning around of something, the radical change of direction. In the chat room, if you're here with me live, let me know what's your definition of revolution, right? But I'll repeat what her definition is. Revolution, as I understand it, is the stopping of something, the turning around of something, the radical change of direction. It involves a lot of violence, and it has to be a cleansing process. A lot of you are afraid of that violence. I go back to my earlier statement that we were brought here to do certain kinds of work, to carry out a certain kind of function. That function and responsibility did not have with it a concern with our continuance or existence as a people through time. Sometimes I think by the time they made the cotton picking machines, we were just not supposed to be here anymore. The continuing process of stopping that, the act of turning that around, this kind of nationalism is revolutionary. And Black women have played a major role in that particular struggle. For the development of my thinking in this area, I owe much to Dr. Vincent Harding. Vincent talks about Black American existence in this country as the longest revolutionary struggle we know today. As a people, we begin to fight when they took us from Africa, and we have not yet stopped. When you look at Black American history, you see skirmishes and battles in the war. In between are mending periods, even some slipping back periods. We are currently, this is me talking, we are currently in a slipping back period. We call it backsliding. However, it is good to keep in mind that natural flow of things. Waves go out. When they come in, there's always a rock back. It's not the same wave in the same place. The sands have shifted to never again be the same. I am, in fact, doing the same thing that my mother did and that my sisters did. The sands have shifted, but the motion I carry is from them. If we understand that we are talking about a struggle that is hundreds of years old, then we must acknowledge a continuance. That to be Black women is to move forward, to struggle for the kind of space in this society that will make sense for our people. Let me highlight that and repeat it. To be Black women is to move forward, struggle for the kind of space in this society that will make sense for our people. It is different today. Things have changed. The search for high levels of humanity in space to be who we know we are is the same. And if we can make sense of our people in the society, we will go a long way in making sense for the rest of the peoples who also live and suffer here. So that's the integrationist talking there, right? To continue, from that perspective, nationalism goes outside of what I call cocoon nationalism or isolationist nationalism. It has to have, in this view, the knowledge that what we do affects a larger scene. We cannot wrap ourselves in a wall and survive. In some ways, a wall threatens survival, making a clearer target. Being a nationalist may mean a centering and purpose inside oneself, and then being sure of being everywhere, so that as my nation goes, so will you, my enemy. Well, that last part you could just say fuck off to, right? I don't care about pulling my enemy along. I care about trampling my enemy. How about you? So here we are in this section that seems kind of like poetic. It says, my mother was born in Worth County. Her mother was a seamstress. Words from my mother about her mother were like, quote, I never knew when she went to bed, end of quote. She was a farmer. When she got home from working the farm, my grandmother would do her work as a seamstress. To my mother, she was always a seamstress, even while she picked cotton or pulled corn or cooked peas and rice. My mother's mother was very heavy, and my mother talks about her, who she did not know. She says, quote, they said that because of her, blank, right? Her husband was a scholar, he read books, and he would sit down and talk to you about books. Quote, because of her, blank. My mother's mother took on the practical existence of her family because of her, blank. They owned the plantation. When she died, the plantation fell apart. To talk about this lady's strength and talent is to talk of tenaciousness. I don't say nothing negative about Jordan Hill, her husband, because if I do, blank. You have to fight everybody in the family because of her, blank. Because of Hannah Hill, all of the children went to school, at least up until she died. We're talking around the 1890s, 1900, Worth County, Georgia. There were no black schools in Worth County, Georgia. She had to earn money to send them off to school. My grandmother, who was my mother's mother, had her clothes packed to go off to school when Hannah Hill died. Hannah Hill died in August. Grandmother was to leave for school in September. But when Hannah Hill died, grandmother never caught the ride, so she didn't go off to school. She sewed and sharecropped her way through. Now what Hannah Hill did is what I saw my mother do, and what she saw her mama do. If you live as a black person in this country, you see these people who show you how to be. Men are supposed to be like this, and women are supposed to be like this. Powers that be told black men they could not be men unless blank. Unless they had a job, unless they supported their family, unless they protected their women. Then the powers that be froze the jobs, starved the babies, raped us, and then said, see, you're not a man, because you're not responsible, because you don't have a job, because you don't support your family, because you don't protect your women. And do you know that there are some of us, blank, by that? Women, black women, looking at white women. never had illusions about being that. There was never any possibility. It was just not in the offering. Too far away from keeping black folks alive. So when you look at what black women do, you're looking at people who have to fashion a something else, a way out of nowhere. When we look across time at black women, we're looking at women who come to this country in bondage with a tradition. And we had to do whatever we could to continue that tradition. I like that. We have to do whatever we have to do in order for there to be a new day. That means dealing with practical reality in a way that keeps you very close to the ground. Always knowing what you have to deal with in the everyday sense. I think there must be dreams someplace in this picture. The reality, the practical reality, hits you so hard that maybe you propel your dreams 2 or 3 generations down the line. Lay it on your daughters or your sons or their children. You understand that what you have to do is make up the difference, whatever that is. So this is me talking, pausing here. This is a powerful statement in here. Right? This is a powerful statement in here. And this is the thing that I want our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, etc., to understand, to gravitate to make it their shared outlook, right? As black women, you have to do whatever you have to do in order for there to be a new day. That means dealing with practical reality in a way that keeps you very close to the ground. Always knowing what you have to deal with in the everyday sense. I think there must be dreams someplace in this picture. The reality, the practical reality, hits you so hard that maybe you propel your dreams 2 or 3 generations down the line. Lay it on your daughters or your sons or their children. You understand that what you have to do is make up the difference, whatever that is. I'm saying to you folks who are listening, hopefully there are black women listening, hopefully black men have also listened to this episode and have shared it with their wives, their sisters, their aunts, their moms, their daughters, right? And that those women will answer the call to action that I put out earlier. Join our Discord community, the Bitter Medicine Podcast on Discord. Help us to create an African-centered curriculum. We need your insights. We need your understanding as mothers, as would-be mothers, as has-been mothers, as grandmothers, right? To how our children learn and how we need to nurture them in the way we educate them as well, right? You can propel your dreams 2 or 3 generations down the line through this African-centered curriculum that we're working on. Join us on the Discord and help to propel your dream, whatever dream you have of that nation, of that strong African people that you want your children and grandchildren and great-grands, etc., to be a part of. Help build it today. We cannot sit back, men, women in between, we cannot sit back and expect a person or two to do all this work and then we shimmy our way in and get all the benefits. First of all, for that to happen, the work is gonna go on for much too long. And that's what we're facing when we talk about African-centered curriculum. We don't want to be working on a curriculum for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 years. We want that out as soon as possible. And right behind that, we want to be working on the revisions of the curriculum, because curricula is something that needs to be revised constantly. Every year or two, there's a new book that comes out that may be able to address the situation better than, say, Amos Wilson's book from 30 years ago. So we gotta have people who are readers, who are workers and readers who are out here constantly updating their knowledge and their information and able to help revise this book going forward. But I'm sorry, this curriculum going forward. In the chat room, I see we have some activity from the sister Nefere. Peace to you, sister. Nefere says, Black women sacrifice so much for their children to give them better lives than they have. Making sure your children know who they are and what their responsibility is to the people, is their people, is the most important sacrifice you can make. And I agree. You know, this sister Nefere and I were talking about something before, some weeks before. You know, where are the sister circles? Like, seriously, where are the sister circles in consciousness? In Black consciousness or African, centered consciousness, where are the sister circles? I'm not talking about the circles that discussing Issa Rae's new show or all that old shit. I'm talking about, like, where are the real conscious sisters who are akin to, say, the Black Cross, nurses that Gavi had? Like, where are the sisters today? As Sister Nefere just said in her comment, the importance, right? The importance of sisters, especially as it comes to our generations to come, is so important that I'm really surprised and shocked and appalled to a certain extent that sisters aren't even answering the call. I have more Black men, and this is the truth. I have more Black men hitting me up. Brother, can you resend that link for me? I'm going to join tonight. I'm going to join the Discord tonight. Can you resend the link? Come on. Some of these brothers are married people. They have daughters, grown daughters of their own. They have mothers. It shouldn't be so difficult. A call to action shouldn't be nothing more than say, hey, curriculum is the blueprint to power. Is the blueprint to nation building. Right? Blueprint to power, blueprint to nation building. I see in the chat room someone came in, Grand Pooba. I don't think I've ever seen you here before. The comment is scattered. Grand Pooba, can you elaborate on that comment, scattered? Right? I don't know if you're talking about me or if you're talking about what I'm talking about. Please, when you come into the chat room, and by the way, when you, this is for all listeners, right? When you come into the chat room, make sure you give context to your comment, because by the time I see your comment, I'm a couple of minutes ahead, removed from when you made the comment. So I need the context to know exactly what you're referring to, if it's in relation to something that I said. Okay, but let me continue. But this section here is important, and I hope someone screenshots this and shares this to the women around you. Right? I hope you screenshot this and share this to the women that are around you. To continue. My father would work from sunup to sundown. I would come home exhausted, eat and go to bed. My mother would work from sunup to sundown. Would come home and work from sunup to sundown. To work from sunup to sundown again. The bottom line, nobody else to turn to If my father came home from work and dinner was not done, hell broke loose because he had worked from sunup to sundown. The only person who did that dinner until we could do it was Mama. My father had a turning place. Mama. He had a turning place. And that's important. That's why I say I don't understand why women, today's woman, I should say, wants to do and act like men. Men have always had a kind of whatlessness to them, if we're being honest. Women, when women are being women, women are the most beautiful thing there is out there. Right? Listen to what this lady says here in this part of the reading. Listen to how the man deals with things versus the woman. And tell me if the woman doesn't come out beautiful, albeit more hard worked, than the man. Why would you not love a woman when you read something like this? Right? My father would work from sunup to sundown. I would come home exhausted, eat, and go to bed. My mother would work from sunup to sundown, would come home and work from sundown to sunup, to work from sunup to sundown again. The bottom line, nobody else to turn to. And men, by the way, this is where we have to be better. And I've been guilty of this too, so I'm not even judging anyone else. I'm speaking from a place of having been guilty of this myself. Right? She has no one else to turn to. If my father came home from work, and dinner was not done, hell broke loose because he had worked from sunup to sundown. The only person who did that dinner until we could do it was Mama. My father had a turning place. Mama, we had a turning place. Before I go to the next part in the chat room, I see more has been done. Grand Pooba has said our sisters are scattered. I think more black women, more black woken go to church. I think he meant women. Our sisters are scattered. I think more black women go to church. Well, it's true. Black women go to church, and that's, if you're like these church going black women, honestly, the priest or the pastor becomes their man. And I think a lot of that has to do with, you know, here's this man, doesn't ask much of them, right? Lifts their spirits, makes them feel something inside, within, right? But isn't pressuring them for anything beyond that, right? And that's something we have to, we the men in the community have to change that too. Reverse, I haven't seen you here in quite a while. Reverse says done. I guess done meaning done joined the Discord. Done, yeah, I guess that means you've done joined the Discord. So if that's the case, thank you. Bampuba goes on to say, I mainly watch your anti-African narrative broadcast, which I loved, and I've been following you ever since. I listened in on your live a few weeks ago. Okay, Grandpuba. Well, Grandpuba, by all means, I'd like to see you here a little bit more often. Drop a comment every so often. Whenever you drop in, drop a comment. All right? Reverse asks, what do the priests and pastors teach to the woman? Well, the priest and the pastor, more than anything, the priest and the pastor makes women feel good. Right? It makes them feel good. It plays on this idea of, you know, in heaven you'll have a great life and all this type of stuff. It makes them feel good. It's a man who sees them, who talks to them, right? Listen, you know, at the beginning of this year, and we're still in the beginning of the year actually, I talked about you know, the three markets: wealth, health, and relationships. One of the things we got to really do better in is our relationships. One of the things that happens in relationships is that men tend to get complacent, and we get complacent when we feel like we've settled the home life and we have that in order. We tend to get complacent while trying to get to the next level in our, say, wealth, right? Or in our activism, or whatever it is that we tend to now put our attentions to. And the thing about women is that women like experiences. You can see that from little girls come up. Little girls don't like to really, little girls want to go to the park. They want to go to the swing, or to the seesaw, or whatever, right? Little guys, you give them a little handheld game or something like that, they're kind of good with that. They're good with that until it's time to eat. Once you feed them, they'll go right back to that game, and that's how guys are. Right? But women like experiences, and so when you start to lack in giving them different experiences and stuff, and here comes another guy who gives them something that they're not getting at home. And that's what the priest and the pastor and stuff gives to these women. They give them something that they're not getting at home. Conversation, an uplifting story, whatever it is. That's what, by the way, what the work husband is giving to some of y'all's women at work. The work husband's coming along talking that jive, how she looks so good in her outfit and all that kind of stuff, and that's how that's how you lose up, right? So we got to be mindful of these things, right? When you put the burdens on, as men I'm talking about, when you put the burdens on these women like that, because you got so caught up in your activism, or you got so caught up in your wealth building, or this, that, and the other. Some guy who don't have half of that shit you're trying to get, a quarter of it, a tenth, but is giving, is talking to them, giving them some attention, that guy will run off with your girl. In the chat room, Reverse says no. Done, meaning I've screenshot the text. Okay, Reverb, so make sure you share it, all right? Grand Poopa says, I know, I have to be more vocal and tune in more. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to down you or anything, I'm just saying, right? It'd be good to see you around, to be familiar. Like I wasn't really familiar with the name when I read it, which means I haven't seen you in a while. Reverse says, okay, LOL, that's crazy, right? To continue, Mama. So at the end it says here, we had a turning place, which was Mama. White folks had a turning place, all of us. There was nobody for Mama to turn to. She was it. When a dress had to be made for a play, if my father did not have the money to buy the material, that was it. For Mama, that was just the beginning. She then had to figure out a way to get the cloth for the dress, stay up all night making it, for this child to be in this play. It's called making a way out of no way. I'm not talking about magicians. I'm talking about people who have to handle the things that they find in the society. I'm talking about people who have to scrub walls and do whatever they have to do so that they can deliver the goods when there's no way laid out to deliver the goods. Now, when I describe that, right, and I'm going to read this again. When I describe that, right, are you telling me that this person, this gender, right, are you telling me you don't want that involved in an African-centered curriculum? You're telling me you don't want that as your mother, as your wife? You telling me you don't want that? Why can't we get that now? It's called making a way out of no way. I'm not talking about magicians. I'm talking about people who have to handle the things that they find in the society. I'm talking about people who have to scrub walls and do whatever they have to do so that they can deliver the goods when there's no way laid out to deliver the goods. I want, this is me talking now, I want that kind of person helping, or those kinds of people, male or female, but I know that that's in a black woman. I want that helping with curriculum. I see there's some chat room activity in the chat room. Athrazer, okay, I haven't seen you in a minute, brother. Athrazer is here. Peace be to you. He says, priests and pastors provide moral guidance, tuning into the eternal rather than just the survival aspects of life that we get bogged down in. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's the point I was trying to make, and I'm glad you put it succinctly. I'll read it again. Athrazer says, priests and pastors provide moral guidance, tuning into the eternal rather than just the survival aspects of life that we get bogged down in. So that's what a woman gets from priest and pastor. Words of encouragement, moral uplift, get them thinking about things down the road, about a time and a place where, according to religion, where there'll be no worries, there'll be no sorrow, right? It takes them away. That hour and a half on a Sunday takes them away from what I just read about here, right? Making a way out of no way. I'm not talking about magicians. I'm talking about black women, right? That's what that's talking about. That's what the priest and pastor give them. By the way, that's what the so-called work husband and the low down dude outside is doing as well. You know, and that's the thing you got to guard against. And if you don't, then so be it. You lost out. And I don't feel bad for you. To continue, I had a teacher named Mamie Daniels. I thought Mamie Daniels was old. I thought she must have been teaching for hundreds of years. Not hundreds, but at least she was 50 when I went to school. And I started school when I was 3 because Mamie Daniels told everybody to send their 3-year-olds to school. So by the time they were 6, they would be ready for the 1st grade. I went to school when I was 3, and I thought I was supposed to learn to read. So I did, and I passed into the 2nd grade. When I was 4, Mamie Daniels will let you do that. The time I was in 4th grade, I was teaching. At least I thought I was teaching. I think I was teaching 1st grade, reading and math. Mamie Daniels will let you do that. Well, she couldn't really do anything more because she had 7 grades in one room in a little red schoolhouse. Right? What did you take from Mamie Daniels here? Right? As you answer that question, I'm going to reread that passage. But Mamie Daniels represents something I talked about in the previous episode. It says, I had a teacher named Mamie Daniels. I thought Mamie Daniels was old. I thought she must have been teaching for hundreds of years, not hundreds, but at least she was 50 when I went to school. And I started school when I was 3 because Mamie Daniels told everyone to send their 3-year-olds to school. So by the time they were 6, they would be ready for the 1st grade. I went to school when I was 3, and I thought I was supposed to learn to read. So I did, and I passed into the 2nd grade when I was 4. Maybe Daniels will let you do that. By the time I was in 4th grade, I was teaching. At least I thought I was teaching. I think I was teaching 1st grade, reading and math. Mamie Daniels would let you do that. Well, she couldn't really do anything more because she had 7 grades in one room in a little red schoolhouse. What do you guys think of Mamie Daniels? A black woman, right? Once again, making something out of nothing, right? Mamie Daniels had so many other students to tend to. She had to teach children to be able to teach children. I talked about it recently on a show that sometimes the best teacher for children are their peers. If a kid understands something, being that they're on a kid's level, mental level, right? And if they could understand it, then they should be able to, in their own way, in a similar language that other kids will understand, they should be able to teach it. And as Arthur Zur says here in the comment section, he says, planning ahead. Get them ready for the challenges ahead. Use the resources you have. Get the children involved in educating the next generation. Powerful woman. That's Mamie Daniels. And I think all of our women have Mamie Daniels in them. Arthur Zur goes on to say, a woman full of vision. By the way, y'all like and subscribe Arthur Zur's YouTube channel. Arthur Zur is a street musician, guitarist, creating conscious music. I think he's in Houston. If I'm wrong, correct me. I think he's in Houston. He's also looking for band members, particularly a drummer, a reggae drummer, to collaborate with and make music. You guys should check the brother out. If you know of ways to help the brother get his music out there, get his music produced, by all means, hit him up. Let him know you like to help. And that's what I'm about. By the way, Arthur Zur is on our Discord. So if you join the Discord, you'll have opportunities to interact with Arthur Zur on the Discord. I planned to do something New Year's, but he was traveling. I couldn't do it, but I plan to do something with a few people I've interviewed who are artists. All right, I plan to do a show that kind of highlights what they do. All right, he's in Austin. Appreciate the plug. Bassist and drummer, love and respect. So if you're a drummer, you're a bassist. If you're in his area, even better. But if you have ideas of how to help him get his music to the next level, by all means, help him out. And if you want to talk to him, you could subscribe to his YouTube page, right? You can share his music. You can subscribe to his Instagram as well, etc. Right? Or you can join the Discord. Speaking of the Discord, let me make sure and grab the 24-hour link from the Discord. And if you saw my call to action video earlier today, it's about 2 minutes 30 seconds long. If you saw my call to action video, you can actually use the link in that video, in the description of that video. That link is good for up to 100 different people. So jump on that link as well. I'm going to post the link here in chat room so that if you're here today, why not just click the link, join the Discord. You can join the Discord to work on the curriculum, or you can join the Discord to help with the podcast. Either way is fine by me. All right. So to continue with the reading. Where was I? I thought Mamie Daniels was really old. I went back to talk to her as part of this research project. And it turns out that at Blue Springs School, she had her first teaching job. In fact, she was very young. How did she go to college? Mamie Daniels got married. Her husband went into the service and sent back $50 a month. On $50 a month, she put herself through school. And the first job she had was at Blue Springs, which was this little school I went to 3 years old. So you see what she did there? Now the husband made a huge sacrifice. He went into service and he was able to send back $50 a month. She took that and turned that into an education. You see? You give a woman some ingredients, she'll bake a cake. You give her a couple of dollars, she'll turn that into education. You give her something else, she'll turn into a child or what have you. All right? She put herself through school. The first job that she had was at Blue Springs, which was this little school I went to 3 years old. Mamie Daniels was an extraordinary teacher. But I'm talking about her as a prototype of extraordinary teachers. I don't want to give you the impression that she was rare. She's rare today. How many of you know a Mamie Daniels today? Right? How many of you listening live here with me tonight know a Mamie Daniels today? If you tried to find her today, you'd be up the creek. But she was not a rarity in 1940. Black teachers understood that if they managed to get a degree, that degree put them in another class. The only thing that did was make them more responsible for handling more material things to complete the delivery of goods to their community. Mamie Daniels had a vision of how to open up our world and point us outward. My father was a carpenter. He built a stage in our one-room schoolhouse so that we didn't have programs that were on the floor. We had a real stage. That meant that Mamie Daniels could put the first grade on the stage and turn them so that they could get their lessons out when I was helping them. And the third grade would be turned another way, looking out that window. She could make space where there was none. She could make space where there was none. I hope you guys are still with me. It seems like my stream is good. But I just want to make sure if you're still with me, give me a little thumbs up or something in the chat room so I can know you're here. Right? But the question I asked was, how many of you know a Mamie Daniels today? Mamie Daniels was an extraordinary teacher. A couple months ago, I talked about the Afrocentric profile of a certain teacher, Touré. Right? How many of you know teachers, men like Touré? How many of you know a Mamie Daniels? Do you agree that Mamie Daniels is rare today? To continue. And she could organize the space she had. My mama, my grandmama, my great-grandma, Miss Daniels. Dreamers who believed in being materialists. Revolutionaries who were also nationalists. Who were also cultural carriers. making something out of nothing. We need these people to help educate our people. My children games I learned from Mamie Daniels. Sometimes she'd yell that we were not clapping right. Every day at lunch, you would finish your lunch and go outside, and Mamie Daniels will lead all of the games to make sure you got them right. It did not matter that you were 3 and the 7th graders they looked to be 6 feet tall. When I would see one coming, I would run because they were so big. Today in school, you don't go up against those kinds of giants. They're way down the hall someplace, and you're in your little room if you're in kindergarten. But if you were a 3rd grader at Blue Springs, and you had to go to the outdoor toilet, and you were coming back through the garden, that Mamie Daniels made your PTA plant so that you would cook greens, so you'd learn to cook. And then here come R.C. Norman, you would just run. You would also cry because he was just so huge. But at recess, all of you would be in this game, and you would be shaking it to the east and shaking it to the west with R.C. Norman. And Miss Daniels will be running it all. Then R.C. Norman would look very good because in a group you could fantasize about him being your boyfriend. That's an interesting take. You know what? That's an interesting take. You know, I think back and I think about my grandparents sometimes. And my grandparents went to something back in the island. My grandparents went to something called an all-age school. I'm sure they probably had this in early Reconstruction America as well. But these all-age schools is what I'm thinking about when I read this description. All of you kids were all in the same place, right? And so that's an interesting situation to be in, because as a young kid having to be around these big kids, you're gonna have to learn how to be able to cope with whatever those big kids are putting down. You're gonna have to learn to socialize with older kids. And I'll tell you something, that goes a long way in terms of your outlook in life from early. That goes a long way in terms of how you speak. That goes a long way in terms of how you perform tasks, right? Because you're around these bigger kids, you got to keep up. You have to have a similar output. And then, of course, you know, if you're a young lady, you're looking at these older boys and thinking about them maybe being your boyfriend. Again, that makes me think of my grandparents. Maybe that's what they had, right? In the chat room, Arthur says, one of the worst things we are suffering from is our desire for worldly success. The illusion that success within the system is for us. To live a life dedicated to building a system solely for us. Arthur also responds to reverse saying, ha, yes, a blessing and a curse. It's unique but strange. He's referring to reverse's comment earlier about how difficult it was to spell Arthur. But that's the thing. We don't have to worry about the quote-unquote worldly success. We have to worry about our African success. We have to create our African world. Remember the old song, Fear of a Black Planet? We have to create our own sphere of existence. And once we do it and we do it right, we ain't got to worry about anyone else. Right? To continue. My mama, my grandmama, my great-grandma, Miss Daniels, were dreamers who believed in being materialists, revolutionaries, who were also nationalists, who were also cultural carriers. Before I read the next part, let me do a quick station ID. I'll be back on the other side.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
This is BAX. You tune into the Harsh Reality Podcast, providing you with social commentary on the news affecting our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-black perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
And we're back. So let's continue this reading. It seems like you guys are enjoying this reading so far. I want to thank everyone who's here, everyone who's participating in the chat room. That's what a show like this really needs. It really goes a long way to have the chat room participation, right? To make this show a little bit more dynamic than what it would be if I should just sit here and read this paper. So to continue, Mamie Daniels found out we had never been on a train trip. She took us on a trip from Albany to Americus, Georgia. She found out we were not drinking milk and made the milkman, who stopped at a store a few miles away, swing by our school so that we could have milk. She found out we weren't brushing our teeth and taught us to make toothbrushes out of pine needles. If somebody came in and hadn't brushed, they'd have to go make a brush and brush their teeth. She made the PTA build a playhouse. I know you've seen playhouses made out of cardboard. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a playhouse 1/4 the size of our one-room schoolhouse. Playhouse that my father and other fathers designed, put together, and built, including all of the things in it. A playhouse that we could walk into and sit down in. Nobody at our house could buy a playhouse. Nobody could get one. But we had a playhouse you could walk in. And if you did everything right, you could go to clean it up. While you clean it up, you could sing your little songs and do all the things you saw your mama do. Wow. That hit me at the end there. Didn't expect that. Right? Yeah, that's deep. And there's something else deep in this too. That notice that the fathers, the men, they got together and they built the playhouse. Notice how she looked into the lives, right? Some would even say the personal lives of her students. You didn't brush your teeth? Well, here's how you brush your teeth. Here's how to create the solution for if you weren't able to brush your teeth. You learn how to make toothbrushes. This is a teacher teaching them. You didn't get to drink milk? Well, I'll talk to the milkman and have him swing through and bring milk for you students. This is what we could be doing in our communities, and we choose not to do it. I don't want to hear no one come and tell me the system is this and that. Nah. No. This is 80 years ago. They were doing this then. We could do this now. In one of my last broadcasts, I talked about how COVID-19 killed a lot of young black men. And one of the things I established in that conversation was that one of the problems is we have black people, men and women, right? But especially black men, to be honest, who are out here trying to build things and trying to give back and give forward to the community and all this type of stuff, and not being able to take care of their health, not being able to relax and let their mind, take a rest for a minute. And so when these things like COVID-19 come around, you're susceptible. Because you're susceptible, now you're dead. Right? We need to get back to this thing where guys get together, men get together, and they build the playhouses or build whatever it is needs to be built. Where men get together, where women actually observe these issues and let us know what's going on, and we get to work. And finally, we need to be the examples for our children. I never forget a lesson I learned, man. You know, I witnessed someone around me back in the day tell a male who was around me too back in the day, an older man, that, hey, if the children don't see you reading, how do you expect them to read? How do you expect them to pick up a book and just read? Right? We got to be the examples. Because when we're the examples, that gives our children, that gives the next generations something to look up to, something to even practice. As we see at the end here, when the author says, while you cleaned up the playroom, you could sing your little songs and do all the things you saw your mama do. Right? This is how we push down the positive things we want into the next generation. When your daughter sees you working on education, working on curriculum, working on community, what do you think your daughter is going to want to do when given the opportunity? She's going to work on, she's going to want to work on curriculum. She's going to want to work on education and community. Right? And that's the same thing for us men with our sons or children in general. We got to be the people who are pushing this thing to continue. There was a Miss Nana in every church. My father pastored a church every Sunday. Miss Nana was in 2 or 3 of his churches. Miss Nana was like thunder. I called her Miss Nana. My mama called her Nana. Nana was a great singer. She couldn't sing all kind of songs, but certain songs she could really get a grip on. That was the way my mama would talk about it. Quote, Nana could get a grip on a song and rock a church with it. She used to sing, quote, time, oh time, time is a winding up. If you don't hear Nana singing it, you don't know the song. I mean, you could hear me singing, time, oh time, there's a winding up. That would be a sort of a weak reference point for that. Miss Nana did what Miss Nana did when she sang, time, oh time, is a winding up. Everybody in church talked about Miss Nana's relationship with God. People thought she had a sort of audacity. Everybody else would say, quote, now, Lord, here comes me, your meek and undone servant, and you know me and you know my condition, end of quote. This was a way of saying, now, Lord, I don't even need to go over my situation. Let us start now with where I am and what I need today. Black people have a familiarity with God, but Ms. Nana would take it to an extreme. She would get a hold of God in a special way, especially during a revival meeting. Ms. Nana was big. I don't know how old she was. She just looked real old to me. I was a teenager at the time. My daddy would open the doors of the church and somebody would come to join, and everybody would have to watch Miss Nana. Miss Nana would either grab the child who had just come in, or she would grab my father. The ushers would race to get Miss Nana so she wouldn't get a hold of the little converts. Miss Nana would be making a streak for a convert or the preacher. All the while, she would be walking in a very everyday, familiar way with God. She would be saying things like, all right, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. I really appreciate that, Jesus. And tomorrow night, you can just send us some more now. You just send us some more. Ms. Nana was grateful for what she got, but she didn't let up on God for what she wanted. God had already given her a soul, right? But then she'd say, That ain't all I need, Lord. You are not off the hook. I expect you to be here on time tomorrow night. People thought Miss Nana was amazing and didn't know what to do with her. You just sort of protected yourself from her. She didn't get too close. It was like when you put an extension cord into a socket and the power ain't right. You could blow the socket or the extension cord. Miss Nana could blow a lot of sockets in our church. So next is this Troy J Latimer, was my history teacher at Albany State College. I don't remember a lot of history she taught me. I know I learned about World War II and I remember Hitler. I made A's out of both classes. I did not become a historian until later. She did not give me my love for history. But Troy J. Latimer was an educated, degreed Miss Nana. Church people talked about Miss Nana the same way we students talked about Miss Latimer. We called her Ma Lat. The thing I remember about Miss Latimer was that the first day we organized a movement demonstration, Ma Lat said, Miss Ma Lat said, as we went by trying to get people out of their classes, quote, get out, go do something for your freedom. You ain't doing nothing here. I like Ma Lat, right? She ran the class out of the room into our demonstration line. That was Troy J. Latimer. Ms. Rogers taught me history in high school, and I remember two things. One, she thought I could go to Talladega College, which from Albany, Georgia, was a real fancy select school that was very difficult to get into. She thought I would go to Talladega. The other thing was, I was reading my history book and it said, quote, black people were better off in slavery than they were in Africa, because in Africa, they ate themselves. Propaganda. Ms. Rogers popped her girdle and said, quote, well, I don't know about that, and that's what I know about Ms. Rogers. Ms. Patricia Webb taught me sociology, and she was the person who, when we were talking in class, would say, quote, integration is coming, and you all had better be ready, end of quote. She said this to us consistently in preparation for this day when we'd be sitting next to white people. Then we were talking one day. Somebody started talking about the bomb. Patricia Webb said she didn't think the bombs were supposed to be dropped. This was in the 1950s in Albany, Georgia, and she thought it was a bad idea to drop those bombs on Japan. That was very different from anything anybody else had ever taught me about the bomb. Patricia Webb told me that. Arthurine Lucy was my first black woman fantasy partner. Me and Arthurine Lucy went to the University of Alabama. We weren't there together. I was with her there every day. We went there together. I was with her there every day. I would dream about her. She said something wrong one day. I know it was because they were pushing her up against the wall and they suspended her. So I just went home and helped her get together because the NAACP was going to get her back, in which they did. And she went back. Me and Arthurine Lucy. I'm in junior high school, went back to the University of Alabama. And then she got suspended again, which was no problem, since she had gotten suspended one time before. I just go home and eat me some more grits. Me and Arthurine Lucy were going back as soon as the NAACP forced the University of Alabama to let us back in. But she didn't go back. She got married to this preacher who took her to Texas. I still have not forgotten him. I still have not forgiven him, because I never got to go back to the University of Alabama with Arthurine Lucy. She was my fantasy partner. One day I know I'll meet her and I'll be able to tell her that. The civil rights movement was simply a continuance of more complexly a continuance. The list reads the same way. I'm talking about black people in different times, on different levels, but the list reads the same way. The mother of my church, I heard her pray every Sunday, but I didn't really hear the prayer until she was in a civil rights movement mass meeting. She said, quote, Lord, here come me, your meek and undone servant, knee bent and body bowed to the mother dust of the earth, asking you to have mercy and come by here. You know me. You know my condition. And a new feeling came over me. It was the first time I had really heard it. I don't mean that the mother of the church had not prayed that prayer before, but it took a march, a civil rights movement march, for me to hear it, to understand what this woman had been saying all of her life. I knew for the first time what it took for me to be able to hear those prayers. In order to stand in the shoes of this old woman, who I had never seen march before or do sit-ins or any of the fantastic things we were doing for the first time in our lives that black people hadn't done before us, or so we thought, in order to even be able to understand what she had been telling me in her prayers for the 17 years I had lived till then, took my being in the struggle, marching, fighting in the civil rights movement, to be able to finally hear and feel the meaning of her words. Till my marching and going to jail, my ears had not lived enough to hear her prayers. What black women did in the civil rights movement was to continue looking at what else we had to do in order for there to be another day for our people. Let me read that again. So I'm trying to highlight it. What black women did in the civil rights movement was to continue looking at what else we had to do in order for there to be another day for our people. The civil rights movement in that respect is not necessarily this gigantic, unbelievable leap. It is, in this light, continuance. We used to look at Fannie Lou Hamer, who weighed cotton for 17 years on a plantation, as if one day she suddenly went down to register and vote. It was not one day suddenly going to register and vote. It was changing jobs to go on carrying out her real work. If it is your job to, if your role is to somehow manipulate this society so you can deliver the goods for the survival of your people, if somebody says there are more black people in this country than white people, and if you all will register to vote, you may be able to deliver more goods, then you don't go on weighing cotton on somebody else's plantation. If you could believe that, then you could go down and try to register to vote. What is revolutionary about registering to vote in Mississippi in the 60s is you know you're going to get killed. When you decide in Mississippi you're going to register to vote, you have already passed the point that revolutionaries pass when they know that what they have to give is their life. Black women are part of a black nation, trained, defined, shaped in a way that says, quote, we must give our lives, end of quote. We settle our peace with that very early. Very early we know that one of the things we have to do in order to deliver the goods is give our lives. Question to you guys listening to this broadcast right now. Do you still believe this to be true? Do you think women, black women, think this way today? To continue. So it's not surprising that the civil rights movement had more women than men. A majority of the people who were in jail were women. We were the majority of the people who were in the marches. We were the majority of the people who were in the mass meetings. When you look at an intensive campaign that lasts without a let-up for a year, when you look and see who comes to the mass meetings. Hold on, let me just capture this real quick. I just kind of made a mistake there. Okay. The majority of the people who were in jail were women. We were the majority of the people who were in the marches. We were the majority of the people who were in the mass meetings. When you look at an intensive campaign that lasts without let-up for a year, when you look and see who comes to the mass meetings, there's black women who are there every night. And to that I ask the question, why is it we can't find conscious sister circles? I know sisters who cannot find conscious women around them. Can't really find them online either. Why is that? In the CRM, you were there every night. Somehow understanding that in this movement, we might be able to increase the space that we had to work in order to deliver the goods, so that there will be another day for our folks. When we look at people like Fannie Lou Hamer, Victoria Gray, when we look at that woman out of Little Rock, when we look at Dorothy Cotton, when we look at Septima Clark, when we look at Ella Baker, Betty Mae Fikes, Cleo Kennedy, we are looking at my sisters. Regardless of age or generation, black women who jumped at the opportunity to enlarge the space we had to work in order to do what we have to do. This paper is interestingly written, but well written at the same time. Today I perceive black women as being given another opportunity to enlarge the working and living space. That space is us. We, ourselves. We must apply energy to the development of our potential as parents, as creative producers, as the new waymakers. There must not be a woman's place for us. We must be everywhere our people are, or might be, in order to continue to do what my mother did and her grandmother did, and what my sisters of the civil rights movement did, fighting each generation, each decade, to seize and hold more space, to continue to deliver the goods of survival in a society that does not know how big we are or how much room we need to stand to our full height. And that's the end of the paper. And I mean, I could highlight almost this whole entire paper. Just gem after gem after gem. And I hope that you guys, you know, feel the gems that this paper was. Right? I hope that you share this broadcast, especially to black women. And I hope you let them know that there is a link that they can follow in the chat room. If they go to the previous video, the 2-minute 30-second video that I did earlier today, that talks about the call to action. I hope that you share that to your social media. Hope you email it to your family, your friends. Talking about black women, family and friends. And I hope you get more sisters to come out and join the Discord and become a part of this conversation and this development of an African-centered curriculum. Within the Discord, I'm going to, if I could get some sisters to really come through, I'm going to set up a sister circle that's private, just to the sisters. Right? I'll set up a sister circle that's private for you guys to do and say and talk about it. In fact, I might put Sister Neferre to be the sole administrator of that. And it's your space to be big. It's your space on the Discord server to be big, to develop ideas and then come and share it with the rest of us, so that all of us can work on your ideas. The curriculum is what we're working on now, but we could work on other things, textbooks, whatever it is that you come up with, right? Share this with the women around you, those you know, those that are strangers. Let's get this work done. It's important. I want to thank those of you who were in the chat room tonight. I know I saw Sister Neferre was here. I saw Grand Poobah was back here. Reverse was here. Athrazer was here. And if you were here and you didn't speak, I still say peace be unto you. I still say thank you for listening. And I do say that I appreciate you. All right? Above all else, I do appreciate you. And I hope that you guys will, in turn, also go and follow, you know, the podcast network. I see, you can see in the chat room, KWAZ just posted a link. Make sure go and follow KWAZ Radio, right? And follow all the shows on the podcast network. Without further ado, I'll leave it there. And I will talk to you guys again on Thursday. Saturday, I think it's either Friday. I think it's Friday. We supposed to discuss the curriculum feedback, the critiques in the Discord. I might stream it. I'm not sure yet. I'll talk to the people about it. To the folks who are participating, I'll talk to them about it. But I'll definitely be here on Saturday night. Saturday night, if I'm not talking, if we're not streaming the discussion on the curriculum, I will show a documentary on Saturday night. So make sure you tune in. Let's watch this documentary together, and we could critique it and have a discussion about it. Okay? Well, so without further ado, I want to say peace to the family. Y'all be good.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.